And reading this, I find it very funny that someone wrote a poem out of it.
I am a genius when the whole world sleeps in its bed of nonsense. This world makes enough sense to an idiot, sleepily awake from birth to death. I am an idiot too, of course, trying my best and worst more or less. Between the first and the last genius, who does not try when no questions yes. Yes answers no if the sun bethinks itself of the moon in all seasons. Unendingly, the sky is too big for every thought to find a reason. I am a genius when half the world dreams at night and half the world daydreams.
When you're alone, so when the world sleeps, you feel different than when you are with other people in the world. So you feel more alone, and maybe you feel like a genius, like you know more than other people, or maybe sometimes also less than other people, because in this poem we can see that it starts with I'm a genius, but also says I'm an idiot.
I think two that stand out for me is I'm an idiot too, of course. And then also the first sentence I really like, I'm a genius when the world sleeps in its bed of nonsense. I like both of those very much.
It's also very interesting that you say I'm a genius in the beginning, and then you say I'm an idiot too, of course. And I think
I am an idiot too, of course. I think we're all idiots and we're all geniuses in our own ways.
I think I'm an idiot too, of course, sort of portrays what the whole poem is about. So it's this realization that even though you think you're genius, at the same time you also know you have this idiot personality as well. And I think it very much sort of portrays this splitness and this not knowing really. And I'm a genius when the world sleeps in its bed of nonsense is what I said before. I think it speaks of a lot of loneliness and of sort of, if everyone's asleep, obviously, you sort of have this moment where you're just by yourself, and then you can maybe recognize that genius more so than when you're just going through life and interacting with people, I think.
So I feel like a genius, and yes, sometimes I also feel like an idiot, but I'm still trying. It doesn't work out all the time, but I'll still give my best.
Eventually, it's about trying, not only passing from birth to death. Reminds me of basically multiple philosophies. And the one I had in mind was the Taoism.
The first and the second line together are quite arrogant, because here the author kind of thinks of himself or herself, I'm the only genius in the whole wide world, and I think that's very eingenommen von sich selbst.
Full of himself.
The way it's written, it sounds like the whole world always sleeps in its bed of nonsense, while I'm the only awake person, the only bright person in the room.
Yeah, I think genius is ironic and arrogant at the same time, so I guess it's important that we think we are genius, you know, we want to go like for something big out there, but of course it's a little bit of arrogant, but I guess in a good way.
I can't tell if this is like a true representation of yourself or if something you're trying to project.
like you say, you're a genius when the whole world sleeps in its bed of nonsense. I don't think it's arrogant. I think it's this feeling of being in a different state of conscience than everyone else. And I think it can feel quite lonely.
I think everybody can define that word for themselves, and if you feel that way for yourself, I think that's fantastic. I don't think it's arrogant. I think it's up to you to see the world through your own eyes and make that decision for yourself.
A little crazy in that moment, because when you admit that to yourself, you're a little crazy. But I don't think it's arrogant at all, actually.
No, I mean, because if the whole world wouldn't sleep in its nonsense, then you would just be one out of many. But yeah, it's only when you're in comparison to others. And then my question would rather be how many other people are also geniuses, and how many percentage of humanity is just in its bed sleeping with nonsense.
It's normal that when you understand that everyone else is sleeping, or it seems to be like that, you feel yourself like a genius, and it's a moment, but like someone awake. I don't think he's arrogant, I don't think he's ironic, I think he's way to say it.
I don't find it so ironic because I think that when we're alone, we all have these type of feelings where we think I'm better than everyone else. So to me, it was more like I'm alone. Yeah, I'm alone and I'm thinking about some things and I think I'm a genius.
Trying my best and worse, more or less. That would be my favorite one because I think it applies to everyone.
Sleepily awake from birth to death. That speaks to me because it's something I can identify with. I like the way it mirrors, the first sentence mirrors with the last one because I like symmetry, and I aesthetically think that that's enjoyable.
I like the first one, but I also like the ending. I think they sort of complement each other.
For me, I was a bit confused because yes answer is no if the sun bethinks itself of the moon in all seasons. I mean, this yes answer is no. This no is for me, and you have it before in a sentence, who does not try when no questions yes. I think that at least got me a little bit confused. When that's intended, then I guess it serves its purpose.
The last word, daydreams, touched me a lot because I love daydreams.
I really like the last part of it, like when the half world daydreams and half of the world dreams at night. Yeah, I think it's really beautiful.
Yeah, it reminds me of daydreaming and wondering if you are actually awake when you're living and breathing.
Sleep in its bed of nonsense. This describes very well how I feel sometimes.
I like the sentence, unendingly the sky is too big for every thought to find a reason. Because I think this also implies this nonsense that we're sometimes thinking, and sometimes things don't make sense, sometimes they don't have to make sense.
Saying I'm genius is a pretty strong message.
Usually when people say they're geniuses, they are doing it in a joking way, or they don't really mean it.
It's honest poem, and I also find it a bit humble.
I'm a genius when the whole world sleeps in its bed of nonsense. This world makes enough sense to an idiot, sleepily awake from birth to death. I'm an idiot too, of course, trying my best and worst, more or less. Between the first and the last genius, who does not try when no questions yes. Yes answers no if the sun bethinks itself of the moon in all seasons. Unendingly the sky is too big for every thought to find a reason. I'm a genius when half the world dreams at night and half the world daydreams.
I feel like a genius because I always try to think big. I guess there are no borders in my head. Like, I don't think very often I can't do this or I'm not good enough or whatever. Like, I guess I can do everything if I want. So I think I'm a genius. What about you, Josh? You're a genius
not
too?
so much as she thinks, but I think I'm a genius sometimes when I focus on things and keep to them. And I think I manage very well to treat people around me nice, so that's maybe a genius move.
Oh yeah, one time when I was arranging my cabinets at home and I made everything fit perfectly, in that moment I was like, I'm a genius, because it took a long time, and then I had this moment of success and then I was like, yeah, that's actually genius.
I feel like a genius when it comes to writing. I'm actually writing a memoir, and I think I'm very good at writing.
I never feel like a genius.
No, I never feel like a genius.
Not a genius.
I don't think I'm a genius, but sometimes I guess when you're thinking to yourself or when you're alone, sometimes we have these feelings. But I also think sometimes I'm an idiot, so.
I think I sometimes feel like a genius when I dare to do what I want to do and what I believe I'm good at, and decide that I'm good enough to do it. I think I sometimes feel like an idiot when everything seems hopeless and I'm still trying to find hope and nothing's getting better.
For me, a genius is somebody who is extremely intelligent and who's maybe innovative. So somebody who can come up with new ideas or new discoveries, new innovations.
With one open eye in a world of blind people.
Someone with a stroke of madness or eccentricity that is deeply in love with some passionate pursuit in life.
A genius is someone who can solve problems. And in order to solve problems, one first has to recognize problems. That goes hand in hand with awareness. I don't think anyone is really born a genius, but is made a genius by himself and its environment.
I think it's sort of doing the best that you can in this life with the things that you have and sort of building up from that. And then sometimes, of course, a genius is sort of a crazy thing. But I think everyone can be a genius in their life if they just try hard enough.
Da Vinci, I think probably a genius.
Einstein.
Yeah.
I think of geniuses in a very scientific sense. So somebody who comes up with new scientific discoveries or new technological developments. For example, I wouldn't necessarily think of painters or artists as geniuses. So I think I've maybe a narrow understanding of, like this scientific definition of genius. So more like an attitude rather than a personality trait.
I'm not sure if like one person always is a genius, or if rather you have like genius moments when maybe you think of something that no one else has thought like this before, like a new way of thinking or a new way of looking at things, and then trying it. And I think it's not stable. I think it's like a fleeting feeling.
You sound introspective and aware of your genius and your idiocy.
Oh, I mean, maybe a little bit split sometimes. Like the worst idiot, but at the same time also genius. So very much on the fence about yourself.
That's pretty self-reflecting, so you're a little ambivalent because you say I'm a genius and then you say I'm an idiot.
Feeling a little bit ambivalent or confused. You're good at making fun of yourself. You're not taking yourself too seriously. And you're also not afraid of taking things seriously.
Somebody's really fed up with how things in the world work.
Maybe you haven't found a way, apart from writing poems about it, how to, change things about that you care about. Are a bit frustrated about it.
I think it goes off the tongue quite well, and I think it's nice that sometimes it rhymes and then sometimes it doesn't, because I think if you always have this very neat 4-line verse, is that called like this in English? It's a bit boring. So I think it's interesting that it breaks with this very traditional poem style. When I'm trying my best and worst, more or less. Well, less, yes.
Yeah, okay. I see it. Seasons, reason.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's a lot of usage of the same words in different ways to express different ideas.
It has a nice flow. I think it flows very nicely. It looks good on the page as well. I don't know if this is intentional, sort of, because that makes this. I really like the use of the parentheses as well, and how you sort of experiment with different placings on the page and stuff.
Here it's a bit more traditional, but here it's more like I'm thinking and these are my thoughts and they're also in the poem. I was a bit surprised by this picture when I saw it. It's not sort of what I imagined to illustrate this poem, but I think it could fit because it's a poem that can be interpreted in many different ways. So the way the poet wrote it, or also the way the reader understands it. So I think the pictures matching this poem could vary a lot.
It's quite erotic. I didn't expect that. I like the aesthetic of it. It does give the poem a different meaning, I think. It does change the meaning. Now I think more of sexuality, of being beautiful, being attractive is very important and fragile, I think. I don't think it's necessarily narcissistic, but it's thinking about how one looks, but also being insecure about it.
Looks like someone who is awake, but also dreaming.
It very much speaks to the poem because it again has the splitness. so it's going into both directions, and then in the middle there's sort of the space where we don't know what's happening here.
I see the same ambivalence that I also see in the poem, because they're like two persons who are turning away from each other and they don't see each other. So maybe the one person is the genius and the other person is the idiot. And if they would maybe turn to each other, they would see, oh, maybe I'm not the one and not the other, but maybe I'm both.
I think it feeds to the part of night dreams and daydreams, because the curtains somehow remember me of something nighty, and maybe even could look like a bedroom. Yeah, and the person is obviously naked, so I can also relate being naked to being in bed. And feels like it's one person but in two versions. So the one person is probably the genius one and the other one the idiot one.
If that represents half the world that dreams at night and the other one that's daydreaming, then I guess.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to tell apart, like to kind of say, oh, the left person is the genius and the other one is the idiot. But maybe that's the point, that there's not really a difference.
You can't differentiate between the idiot and the genius, and they're the same.